Hi everyone, welcome to another exciting episode of Content Marketing Leaders 2025, brought to you by Pepper Content. I'm Nima Jaidas, and today I have the pleasure of speaking with Brad Olesen, who is the Chief Content Officer at Benzinga. Now, Brad comes with a very fascinating journey across multiple financial media companies. And today, with him, we are going to dive into all things content, market intelligence, leadership, specifically in the ever evolving financial industry. So let's get started. Welcome, Brad. Lovely to be speaking with you today.
Lovely to be here. Thanks, Nima.
So, Brad, you've held very senior leadership roles in some of the biggest names in the financial media, like Bloomberg and Seeking Alpha, and now Benzinga. So, very curious to know what initially drew you towards content that are in finance and how your approach has sort of evolved during these years.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds cliche, but it started early on in my career, just in terms of the financial market interest, as a newspaper that my father gave me with stock prices and just the
Okay.
general concept that you could buy a stock and earn a return on it, whether as a dividend or otherwise. And my father had a financial background, although he pivoted his career later in life, and that just always resonated with me. And so, I found myself going into the financial markets and started with trading, and then gravitated towards media as I understood that if you want to be a powerful investor or understand how
Mm,
the markets operate, you're going to need to understand the data component, what goes into valuing a lot of these investments, and what moves a lot of these investments. And in many cases, that's going to be news, content, and idea generation. And so, I don't think anyone predicts how their career will play out. But
yeah.
I'm really happy with the journey, and there's obviously a lot more to do. The industry has rapidly changed in the 20 plus years that I've been in it, but yeah, it started at a young age, and here we are.
So, if I understand correctly, it started off from an educational or just curiosity of wanting to know more
Well,
lens.
it was just a fascination. I mean, when you're, 9 years old, and you see
Right.
that you can put your allowance, the several dollars a week that your parents may give you, and
Yeah.
you could buy a potential stock and see a return on that. That was always interesting to me. And so I held some CDs when I was really, really young, and that's how it evolved. And so trading, investing was always going to be an interest
Okay.
for me. And then you can't really do that unless you understand what goes into
Yeah.
how those assets are transacted.
Interesting. So, coming to your specific roles, right, through your journey. So, at Seeking Alpha, you managed to shift from an ad supported model to more of a subscription based one. So, what were some of the biggest challenges and learnings, just making that journey? And how do you think that has informed your approach right now at Benzinga?
So that decision was made at the management level, and there was a lot of credit that's due
Hmm.
to a lot of different people who were on that
I'm
team
sure,
at the
yeah.
time. And the hardest decision that I think they had to make was the making that decision to leave money on the table in many cases,
Hmm.
right? The subscription model was
Hmm.
not proven really at that point in time, and so it was a big leap of faith that was
Hmm.
brought about by mining lots of data, user behaviors, and actually understanding what value you actually want to bring to
Hmm.
your user, right? I think a lot of people got accustomed, in the advent of the internet, to free content, to free information, and it's still a
Yeah.
very difficult friction that people encounter when they're asked to pay for something.
Hmm.
So that's similar to now at Bitzinga. We have a variety of different subscription products. I manage mostly some of the free content on the web and some of our subscription news services as well. We have to find that sweet spot. Where are we actually
Yeah.
providing value versus what's freely available in the marketplace? And not only a part of that is the value, but also trying to create that loyalty within the community that understands that even if they can find it somewhere else, they'd
Yeah.
rather consume that content with us, and they're willing to pay the price to help make that happen. Because again, without the readership and the loyalty, we can't do what we want to do, right? And so the way that I've
Yeah.
approached all
Yeah.
of the roles that I've done is through what I call pragmatic journalism, where a lot of the journalists want to feel like they're investigating something unique, or that they're going to break the largest news on the planet, and that needs to be freely accessible to everyone. However,
Yeah.
for those salaries to be paid, we have to understand what we can charge, and get that over the finish line. And I hope that the investing public and the public at large understands that there's a lot of pressures on media right now, and we need to make sure that
Yeah.
if you want that content at the highest level, it requires a little bit of pain for everyone. So
Very interesting you said that, because that really ties down to my next question. And I think you've covered a large part of that, which was especially regarding Benzinga's audience being so loyal. And I think you covered that in terms of the value you provide and versus what's tweak versus, what you really pay for. And it looks like you've found the sweet spot there, because clearly your audience is really very loyal. So what other avenues do you explore here? Do you think something else has worked? Would love to know your thoughts on this, because that's not an easy thing to crack, right?
So I wouldn't, it's not. This is not a success story yet. I mean, we're obviously doing really, really well. I'm not ready to throw up the mission accomplished banner by any stretch of the imagination. We have a lot of work to do for our readership, but I think this is also sounding cliche, but trust is a big part of that. And so you mentioned timing. We can't lose the trust of our readership if we're
Yeah.
slow on pieces of information. And
Yeah.
so part of the way that we've structured our teams is to allow the speed part of that equation to be covered, so that we don't risk losing that trust in the marketplace. And also the tone and style of the content that we do right. We want to make sure that we're being careful, especially in this politically charged environment, that
Yes.
a lot of the content that we write doesn't appeal to either extreme. I think if you look at from a pure business model perspective, there's value in going to either extreme, because you can demand,
Yeah.
either higher subscriptions or a more engaged audience. But I think where myself and the management team have landed at Benzinga is that it's more important to stay in the middle, even if it is at the expense of our bottom line, only because we do want to keep that loyalty, and especially within financial journalism. And this is why I love that space, particularly, is that in many cases data doesn't lie. And if we can lean on a lot of that information to tell the story, if we can use the marketplace to lead us in the right direction, then we don't have to conjure up ideas or lean too much into opinion. We'll leave that to some of the other services that we provide. But luckily, many of those opinions don't necessarily come with a slice of politics. So we're lucky, and that's part of the reason why I love this space and have been in the space for so long, is that I don't have to, cater to either end of the spectrum. We can just deliver information that we think is valuable.
That's so that's so lovely to know, Brad, because this is something that we also try and walk the tightrope, which is, how do you lead your teams in this fast-paced environment? Because you need to be able to sell them your vision, your values, and the direction that you're taking, while walking the creativity versus the analytical mind and data-driven approach, right? So how do you balance that? How do you go about it?
Creativity is interesting. It's a big challenge in this space. I had the privilege at Bloomberg, as part of the many roles that I had there, to be a columnist, and creating engaging headlines and understanding what the actual news part, or what is newsy about what you're bringing to the market happens to be, is a very hard challenge in this industry. And you learn very quickly who understands that there's a difference between reporting on something happening and bringing that information to someone in a way that they want to consume it. And many of the examples I constantly speak with our managers about is that we have to put what we're talking about in context. And that means, talking to our readers in a way to explain why we think something is newsworthy, right? Just
Hmm.
because a company says something doesn't always mean that it's interesting or that it's worthy of print, right? And in many cases, we have a barometer at our disposal called the
Yeah.
stock market, right? Or a lot of these indices. They tell us whether the market thinks in many cases something is
Hmm.
interesting or not. So creativity is a tough one, and it's something that we are constantly trying to do better. Uh, we run workshops within the teams to help people understand if XYZ company buys another one, that doesn't necessarily mean that's a great story. But if they
Yeah.
buy a company that is, maybe 500 yards down the street, that's kind of a fun story, right? But you'd only know that if you went through and went and researched their addresses, or they
Yeah.
bought a company that was a private, the former CEO's college roommate. Like that is
Yeah.
something that jumps off the page for our mass market audience. And then our subscription trader audience only wants the basic information. They want to know XYZ company bought ABC company. And so we get to pursue both of those avenues with all the various products we have, because on one hand we
Yeah.
want to attract, let's say that the young individual who just has that newspaper with the shares of Nike stock and what's going to get
Hmm.
them excited about the industry. And then on the other hand, we want to make sure that our investors aren't dissuaded from reading our content because it has too much irrelevant information, like whether someone went to college with another executive. So the creative aspect we silo in our free content, our web content areas, just because that's the type of audience that we have to attract. One thing that I often talk to our team about is the demand on our audience's attention. And you
Hmm.
have to imagine that the mass majority of passive investors are going to read maybe 5 to 10 stories a day. They're going to consume maybe 3 or 4 of those on social media platforms, or even hears about some of that information through their favorite influencer. And so your content needs to be the remaining 4 to 5 stories in a sea of tens of thousands that someone may
Yeah.
see if they're actively looking for information. And the only way to do that is to make sure that your headline and the concept behind what you're writing is truly valuable rather than just reporting on what happened.
Yeah, that makes absolute sense. And uh, talking about the different audiences that you cater to, you also, Benzinga also provides market intelligence for both retail as well as institutional investors. So I'm guessing the same play comes into, the same logic comes into play when you're catering to different audiences, that, contents that makes sense to such diverse audience as well. So do you use the same approach, or is there some other strategy that you follow to make sure that you keep both these target audiences equally engaged and informed?
Yeah, it's always a work in progress, but yes,
Mm.
we have institutional clients on our data side that are part of our extensive licensing
Yeah,
business, and they're just interested in the data side
yeah,
of what's happening, right? But in terms of keeping the institutional clients and our subscription products happy, as I just mentioned, they want to know what happened and how it's going to impact their portfolios and what the
yeah,
opportunities are. What are the trading opportunities, the ideas that we can bring based upon the experience that exists within our content team. So they're looking for ideas. And so when we're writing about content, not only are we telling them what happened in a very straightforward manner, but we're also trying to lean on the data that we have at our disposal to put forth ideas that they can then pursue and research on their own to make
mm,
their experience much more engaging one. And something that we also are endeavor to do as often as we can is surface some of those tools within our content, partially as a way to make it more engaging, and also to, again, try to tap into maybe that inner curiosity that might exist within our user base, rather than just leaning on a wall of text that is, unfortunately not enough to maintain many of our attention spans in 2024.
that's interesting. You mentioned tools. So can you give a few examples of what tools you might have employed for this? Uh,
So
Off the top of
what
my mind, I'm just able to think of comparison tools, but would love to know more from you.
So always a work in progress, but our subscription services within Benzinga Pro have a lot of data inputs, and so
Mm.
we have an extensive scanner tools, signals tools that tell our audience which stocks are getting attention, which stocks are
Mm.
hitting critical technical levels. We have our analyst rating tools, which is based upon not only our extensive list of contacts and data feeds, but we also have our own proprietary systems that measure the effectiveness of different analysts and their ability to forecast and predict the success of any particular company over time. And we have a lot of different tools around insider trading and government trading.
Okay.
These are officials. Part of our mandate within our content channel is to lean on those to not only create fresh content, but also to lean on that and help contextualize different pieces of
Mm.
information and news that happen to be relevant in those circumstances. So a lot of different tools at our disposal. We have our new Benzinga Edge program, which is our subscription product that appeals to the broader investing audience, not necessarily the niche active trader,
Mm.
but more of a financial advisor client or a potential average professional who just wants to buy a few ETFs and stocks. The Benzinga
Mm.
Edge is our subscription tool that allows people to lean on the analyst ratings, earnings intelligence. So this is related to the quarterly financial reports that all the publicly traded companies disclose. We have a variety of different tools that help to quantify whether the stocks are promising or are trending in the wrong direction,
Okay.
and so it helped people make better decisions with their portfolios.
Got it. Makes a lot of sense. So this, I'm guessing, is also, I mean, every company is a tech company now, right? So, I mean, there's no running away from that. So I'm guessing a lot of AI and automation goes into these tools and how it's presented to the end user as well, I'm sure, because these are live data. So how do you, especially with, financial media evolving rapidly, how do you see AI and automation playing a role in content creation? Because I mean, I would think it has a huge role to play, especially for personalized market insights. But would love to know how you're going about this. Do you do something about this already, or
So we're obviously past the panic stage in AI now. I think
of course,
now that
yeah,
we're in late 2024, obviously we all heard the doom and gloom a year ago that all of us would be out of jobs within 3 months. Although that is definitely the case in parts of media and every other industry, where I think the promises of AI needed to be tempered a little bit, and I think we're
yeah,
seeing that now. What the communication that I've always used with my team is that we are not a Bloomberg at
mm,
Benzinga. And as a result, we need to lean on these AI tools to help us be more
yeah,
competitive. And that is helping to surface ideas, helping us to do some of the busy work faster.
yeah,
So that might be transcribing our own interviews and uncovering some of the insights that might be helping us find leads on the sales side, that might help putting together a bunch of spreadsheets and trying to find signal
mm,
within the noise. So just accelerating a lot of the busy work, maybe data
yeah,
crunching, while still trying to be careful that the AI tools are actually giving you the right answer, which we found
yeah,
in many cases that they do not. And so I think after that became, I guess, more prevalent within the space about how dangerous AI can be if you just take it at face value, we've had to be very careful about how we're using it, and we want to make sure that when we are using it, it's for the time savings in areas in which it was laborious for us. And so
yeah,
there is a place for it in automation. There's a place for it in data crunching, understanding at
yeah,
a faster rate what our audiences are responding to, what they're enjoying, and how we can pivot and give them more of what they want, and also to help learn more about exactly what they want and give that to them easier and faster and in different formats. So I think there's a tremendous value on the product side. On the content side, you're still going to have to be, writing content, and maybe there might be some ways that you can use AI to help mine your existing content and help, bring
Yeah.
context faster to the articles and the content that we're writing. But otherwise, there's, I think the promise is not yet there. And, me kind of moving into this journalistic world, I almost hope that it doesn't become as commonplace as it may become, only because you need people on the ground to talk
Yeah,
to real
of course.
people. You need
Yeah.
real eyeballs to look at press releases, and you need real eyeballs to dive through SEC filings. It'll help you find a lot
Yeah.
of that information faster, but understanding what's important and understanding what's important in the context of what's happening in the world at the moment is also really important. So
Yeah.
on one hand, you could say XYZ happened, but really only a human at this point is going to be able to bring together why XYZ happened and why it matters
Yeah.
today versus happening last week, because you can write two different stories with only a few days in between them.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'd like to think AI has made us a lot more efficient and smarter in that sense because it stretches the human creativity a bit. Because, like you said, you can't just leave it to its own devices, right? This is also I think, the tightrope that we at Pepper Content use, because we use AI and tech to scale, to produce content at scale. But of course, there is always a human layer that comes in, and that there is no escaping human creativity. It just gets better and more efficient, I would think, with the rut work out of the way, because now we have machines and AI to do that. So,
Yep, absolutely.
um, so Brad, you worked across different companies, right, and major financial platforms. So, how has your leadership style really evolved over time, and what do you think are some of the most important qualities for leaders in this content creation space should have?
I think patience, for one, I
Yeah.
think is helped
Always a
me.
good virtue to have.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not saying I'm the most patient person, but I would say that understanding that in many cases, the newest people to this industry will
Hmm.
have a hard time understanding how the sauce is made, so to speak. But I think in terms of the evolution over time, obviously that's been a function of the roles that I've assumed. And I think early on in my
Yeah.
career, it started with teaching. And once you've kind of understood how to be successful in your own responsibilities, being able to properly communicate that and empower the younger individuals within your company to find those same insights, and being able to teach that effectively, I think is really critical. And then over time, as you move out of that very hands-on teaching phase, it's understanding, after years of teaching, what types of individuals will be learning the fastest, and how to identify
Hmm.
the people who can learn quickly and can
Yeah.
be entrusted with taking on more responsibility, uh, and identifying that talent. And then I think in the later stages, it's about bringing all those things together, being able to, like, not only teach the bare bones of producing content, but then understanding, bringing that together with identifying the talent and then empowering the right people to make
Yeah.
decisions and trust them. Like I said, patience is kind of a big thing that I try to employ. I, I don't mind when people make mistakes. I just hope that they don't make the mistakes more than a few times, hopefully not
Yeah.
more than once. And but
Yeah.
that's kind of the evolution, and it's mostly just a function of the responsibilities that have to come into play. And I think the only way really to move down that pathway is to have experience doing all the things that your team is doing now, so that you can
Yeah.
effectively help them in ways that they may not be able to see, because in many cases their heads are down all the time. And so
Yeah.
having the ability to sit at a higher level and be able to observe and help guide them when their tasks may be blinding in many cases is helpful. But
Well,
you know, part of the question, it's it's a humbling question because I don't necessarily believe myself to be the best leader, or that everything that I have done has been the right way. But that's just something that I think I've observed over time, is just probably trying to understand that you don't know everything when you're younger. When
Yeah.
you do have an epiphany, remembering that epiphany and passing that epiphany on to
Yeah.
the next generation, and being able to say, hey, look, I remember when XYZ happened, this started to make my job a lot easier.
Yeah.
So, look over here, spend time researching this, and then your job will be a lot easier. And I think in many cases, and in many different areas of our economy, there's this, many people are out for themselves and they don't want to share some of those insights. But I think if you want to be part of a team, you're going to have to understand that you want the team to do better rather than
Of
just
course.
yourself. And then I think if
Yeah.
over time, you just have to be, here we go, patient again, that you have the right leaders who may recognize that you have a skill set, or that people are better when they're around you, and that they hopefully entrust you to take on that more responsibility. But I will, close this answer, this long-winded answer, by saying that not all people are going to be leaders, and they don't necessarily
Yeah.
have to be. And promotions don't always have to come with, oversight of people. There are extremely high performers that are best
Yeah.
performing highly. And, those people have to be treated a little bit differently than the people that you want to ultimately become leaders. And so there's no shame in either direction. It's just understanding.
Yeah, no, makes absolute sense, Brad. And you brought up a very interesting point, which is something we say a lot at Pepper, which is, make new mistakes. Let us all not make the same mistakes over and over again, hopefully just once. Awesome. So now we come on to our second segment, which is our rapid fire round. So, of course, like all rapid fires, I'm going to shoot a couple of questions to you one by one. And the first thing that comes into your mind, we'd love to know. Yeah?
Sure.
Okay. So, first one. Now, what's the first thing that you would do if you're invisible? You got Harry Potter's cloak. What you gonna do?
I guess, you're tempted to say something, illegal.
I was about to say that you're from the financial industry, so you might want to watch what you're saying.
No, I know, and I wouldn't do that. I don't know, actually. I think.
Oh, come on.
That's. I was thinking of flying first, but then invisible. I think everyone always thinks about a bank, but I don't know if I would do that, because you can't really you can't move your money around like you used to, so that'd be really hard to do. I don't know. It's a really tough question. I don't want to incriminate myself. So.
All right. We'll give you this. If you could have any celebrity as your work buddy, who would it be?
Interesting. I would say probably there are a couple different hedge fund managers that I deal as I would consider celebrities.
Okay.
David Tepper is one of them. He's forged an amazing career as a hedge fund manager over time. Jim Simmons would have been a great one too, as well, Renaissance Technologies. But those are the two that come to mind, just to kind of pick their brain and work with them over time, and how they find signals for developing such a successful investment career.
I'm sure we've all had corporate jargons and financial jargons. So, which is one financial jargon you wish would just disappear forever?
I think the worst jargon is I'm not going to pick a specific word. I'm just going to pick a specific crutch, and I think that's just using shorthand in many cases when you don't have to.
All right. What's one book or podcast you think every content leader in finance should read?
One is the Bloomberg Way, which was more of a style guide than anything else. But Smart Brevity is a really popular book among content leaders now, from Jim Vanderheim from the group.
Awesome. Stocks or bonds?
Stocks.
Okay. What's your most used app?
Benzinga.
Correct answer. All right. So, if there were no limits on your resources, your budgets, nothing, right? What's your dream project at Benzinga? What would that be?
So it's working on Better data, right? So we're building a lot of different tools. I got the bug when I was at Bloomberg. There's just unlimited options at your fingertips, and so
Hmm.
for us, we're doing a lot of different things right now that are going to be helpful for our investors and traders. But coming up with proprietary signals, not that are going to beat the market necessarily, but can help you be a stronger investor.
It's so interesting you say that, Brad, and this is something we hear from several marketing leaders as well. And it's what builds your pipeline as well, right? So very interesting that your dream would be no limits on that. Great. So looking ahead, Brad, what trends do you think will dominate the content creation scene in financial media over the next 5 years? And also, what advice would you give aspiring content leaders who want to make an impact in this space?
So it's tough to make predictions, especially about the
Hmm.
future. Uh,
Yeah.
but yeah, that's the. I'm not. I'm no Nostradamus. I think the only way that you can be smart about producing content is to be data focused, and that
Hmm.
will lead you in the right direction. There's nothing that I'm going to be able to forge within this industry that will lead us in a particular direction, but I think the what the industry has to be careful about, in my view, is trying to force something to happen, or to stay married to some archaic past, and
Hmm.
that will probably lead to inevitable decline. So I think it's just trying to stay on top of what the trends are within the industries, trying to evolve your product in the best possible way, for monetization and otherwise. AI is obviously going to be important. Automation is important.
Yeah.
Audience segmentation extremely important, and also how we eventually bridge the social media and traditional content marketing engines, whether that's in article formats or video. That obviously there for a long period of time it was blogs, and then you had more
Yeah.
and more video, and now you have influencers, and at a certain point we're going to become too fractured, and there's going to have to probably be a reckoning or consolidation within the space, whether more and more influencers are either absorbed into larger media campaigns, or maybe we only
Hmm.
have an influencer model going forward and there will be no media organizations. But at least as far as content marketing, it's just reconciling those differences, and I expect something to happen in the next few years to bridge that gap, because I don't think it can continue um, with the celebrity influencers versus
Yeah.
media organizations as purveyors of information.
Great. This has been so much fun, Brad. Thank you so much for joining us. Any closing remarks? Anything from your end?
No, I'm happy to be here. Glad you guys invited me on, and hopefully I didn't speak too long and put anyone to sleep. Um, that has happened a few times
No,
before.
not at all. No, this has been so much fun, Brad. Thank you so much for taking the time.
Yeah. Thank you, and the team Pepper.
Thank you.